Word Balloon, celebrating 16 years of excellence for you.
Every part of comics and artwork is a form of communication with other people. It's not just a, here, let me direct my thoughts at you as a dictation of concept, but it's hoping to convince you of how cool you think a visual could be or a story could be. And you're trying to communicate ideas in one part storytelling and greater part just graphic impact. You're hoping to relate a sense of energy, urgency, and enthusiasm to people. That there's a lightning of spirit that comes out of superheroes that has always worked for me. That it isn't really about the practicality of what they might do, it's not the practicality about grown men punching each other in costumes. It really isn't about that. It's a visual metaphor. And that metaphor could be for a lot of things, but it's mostly just about the energy and enthusiasm that can be found in the fun of life.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for another Word Balloon Live on a Monday, starting off another great week in June. Man, June has been exceptional with the conversations I've had, and it's always due to the great guests we have. John Suntress here, and I'm going to include, because I know it's going to happen, we've already done this so many times, Paul Kupperberg in that mix, because always great to see you, Paul, and always with incredibly cool stories. I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about these new books of yours.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Absolutely, man. Well, man, I'll tell you, I was all ready to just talk in particular about two new books. I didn't realize there was a third new one.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the latest one is Direct Comments.
Right.
Which I can certainly relate to because these are one-on-one interviews that you've done with a lot of big names in the comic book field, and some that, go back to, hell, I mean, Jerry Robinson, Kurt Schaffenberger there.
Yeah, they're right at the start.
Yeah, man, and Murphy Anderson and everything. So this is exciting. And so these started off and really abbreviated versions of these interviews as something that was part of an inner office magazine.
No, actually, it was part of DC Direct Currents, which is the monthly newsletter that was distributed through comic shops. And
yeah,
that was the one that was the comic book size, and it was in color. And it was a flip book too. It became a flip book. One side was Vertigo, the other side was DCU. I wrote this thing for years. I started writing these things back in the 70s when I was on staff doing PR in like 1977 or whatever. I was fired. Excuse me, I wasn't fired. Sal Harrison was very careful. You're not being fired. You're being laid off. But by the DC implosion. So
wow, sure.
Yes, I was a victim of the DC implosion, and so anyway, I've been writing those things since then, and on and off for years. And then this one, that iteration, I think, started in 1988, and it ran for over 90 issues. And I did interviews. Every month, I would do an interview with a different creator about whatever was in the news that issue, I would, get on the phone, conduct an interview, transcribe it, and then pick quotes out of it to use in the little article I wrote. I guess about 1,500 word article that I wrote. It was a feature called "People at Work." And like I say, there was over 90 of them, but the full transcripts of only these 22 interviews survived. They just happened. I found this floppy disk in a drawer, and I I did that thing. Everybody goes, get rid of the old technology. No, I had a 3.5 inch floppy disk drive reader in the closet, and I hooked it up, and it worked, and I saved these 22 interviews. So
yeah.
So I went in, polished them up. They were really verbatim. So the way people talk, it's very choppy and all that. So I cleaned them up a little bit, but they're essentially, in their own words as they said them. And after I finished putting this together, I looked at all the material, and I thought that the most recent thing being discussed in this book happened 30 years ago.
Wow.
Because all these interviews took place between 1988 and 1991. So I started annotating it, and I wound up, there's a lot of things that are annotatable. And as I look at it after it's already out, there are probably dozens of other things I missed. But yeah, so I did a heavy annotation of the interview so that, people kind of know what they're, what was being discussed and referred to, and who this guy was. And, an artist, somebody will say, boy, I'd give anything to find out what issue that was, that I first read as a kid. And now I just go to, comics.org, and I find it in 3 minutes. And so I'll annotate, that was Batman number 122 and whatever, so.
Wow, I didn't know about the existence of comics.org as a database. That's great to know, because I used to go to the comic book database, and it shut down a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
They were always extensive.
Comics.org is indispensable, man. I use it all the time. I do a column for 13th Dimension web.com. And so, I'm always referring back to the old stuff, and they're a great source,
I'm glad you're writing for, and I'm blanking now on who writes 13th Dimension.
Oh, thank you.
Whose website is that?
Dan Greenfield.
Dan Greenfield, absolutely. Yeah. Great, fun memory lane website. And again, Paul, thank God you're a pack rat. I've been saying it since we've arranged this conversation, and well before that, because you had that excellent, you found that videotape of Julie Schwartz.
Yes.
In that live presentation about Superman.
Right.
I mean, it's no, thank God you hang on to this stuff. Your blog is always filled with that kind of ephemera as well. And I'm really glad. And it's funny, like you, I've got a cassette player, I've got a VHS player in case I stumble across things. I wish I had hung on to my cassette interviews earlier, because I threw them out. And somewhere in there, and I can't believe I would have hung on to it had I known where it was, I had a micro cassette of my interview with Muhammad Ali. It was only 5 minutes long. As you say, it was about 30 years ago. It was 90 or 91 before Holyfield fought George Foreman.
Right.
And despite his Parkinson's syndrome, you understood everything he said, and his mind was always sharp. Yeah. It was really just motor skills and having trouble enunciating. But he was a man and could not have been more generous at his time. Yeah, but unfortunately now it's as the Smithereens used to sing, it's only a memory.
Yeah, so, wow, man, that's cool. I mean, I was in the room with him once during the news conference for the Superman Ali comic, and I don't think I got within 40 feet of him, but it was still like, you knew you were in the room with this man. He really had an energy to him. It was something.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. I interviewed him at a fight that was on ESPN on their weekly boxing show at the time, and it was in South Bend, Indiana, Notre Dame country. And the promoter's like, "Hey, Ali's coming." I'm like, "Yeah, right." And he's like, "No, seriously, he lives in Berrien Springs, Michigan. It's less than an hour away." He goes, "I'm telling you, he's coming." He goes, "So if you want to get an interview with him," I'm like, sure. And when he walked in, it was in the middle of one of the preliminary fights. And I always describe it as it was like the Queen showing up at Wimbledon. Like everybody stopped what they're doing. Everybody rose, standing ovation. We all stood until he sat down. Then we all sat down. It was so great. And what a guy. I want to let you know that Alex Saviak is watching us. Great to see you.
Alex.
Alex, I bought framed above my right next to my bathroom. It's the truth. Those two amazing Spider-Man comic strips he inked over Larry Lieber
Nice.
and Stan did the scripts, and they are among
Yeah.
my prized original art possessions, and can never thank you enough. Alex, I hope you will be at Terrificon. I know that Paul is going to be there. The dates are, as you see there, July 30th through August 1st. It's my first convention back. I'm assuming Paul's.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's going to be great seeing everybody. Can't wait.
Most of them.
Yeah.
It'll be good seeing Alex though if he's there.
God, I hope he is, man.
I think we started working together back around 1977 or 78, and I recently just out of curiosity checked, and we have done hundreds of pages of comic books together.
Wow, that's awesome.
We not only did stuff in DC Comics Presents and kids flash stories or whatever, but in the 80s there was special Superman albums created for the German market for the publisher IHAPA, and Alex and I did a lot of those together. So these were like 46-page stories. Back that long.
Yeah. Holy cow!
Oh yeah, I'm writing an article about them for back issue.
That's terrific! Wow, cool.
Yeah, I wound up salvaging copies of Julie Schwartz's records. His
ledgers.
His ledger records of all the books. When I added them all up, I wrote about, I think it was like a third or better of all those stories. So I figured, who better to tell the story than the man who made the story?
Absolutely, man. No, again, this is what I love when I check in at your blog. You'll post the comic strips that you did, and God, we'll talk about your Ragnarok novel, but I know you put up the synopses of proposed Justice Society individual novels. And
I put up the synopses for the JSA novel was originally going to be a trilogy, and
Ragnarok itself was going to be a trilogy. Or is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the trilogy was Ragnarok. This originally had a different name, but just wound up using Ragnarok when it became a one-off thing. Why, that's it there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love the description. In New York, Mr. Terrific barely survives an attack by the Tigress. Across town, Power Girl is being grounded by the power of Count Vertigo. In Keystone City, Jakeem Thunder and his magic Thunderbolt face off against Blackbriar Thorn. And in Blue Valley, Stargirl feels the power of the Geomancer. Why have all the Justice Gang declared war? The answer spans the globe. In faraway Casablanca, a collector of antiques is murdered by a mysterious woman. I'm doing the whole thing here. For what appears to be a minor Roman relic. And on a German waterfront, an old man kills a young man to steal a World War I artifact. Really cool stuff, man. Look at that. Green Lantern, Flash, Wildcat, the JSA teammates.
Yeah.
Will fight the Wizard and a threat they believe they had destroyed in the last days of World War II. But now, and we all love it, the Spear of Destiny, the powerful.
You gotta love it, sure.
Once wielded by Adolf Hitler himself, as it gets surfaced. Very cool, man. And yeah, no, this sounds amazing. And this came out in November during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how sales have been, but that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about it and remind everybody that it's out there. And again, man, you know these characters. I remember the original, I believe it was Roy, The Last Days of the Justice Society, right?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that one. It was the origin story of the Justice Society where we saw the Spear of Destiny, I think, for the first time.
Right. But this plays off of The Last Days of the JSA that Roy and David Ross did. It's kind of a sequel to that. It was originally written in 2005 for Byron Price's iBooks, and then Byron unfortunately had a run-in with a bus, and and his company eventually went bankrupt. Literally the week this book was supposed to go to press.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it didn't get there. Anyway, it only took 15 years, but finally managed to work things together so that we could get it out there.
Did you have to, I assume, get official permission from?
I worked out with people. Yes.
Sure. Well, they know you, so
yes, exactly. So.
So that's cool. No, I'm so glad. And in fact, Magic K acknowledges Elliot Magan's Superman books that he wrote in the late 70s, and now Elliot is republished those. So it looks like Paul's about to leak in his his bookcase for him. Here, I zoomed in on you, Paul. So when you find him, we'll pop them up. Boom. Yeah. I got the originals as well. And I thought, and on the one hand, I almost felt bad because I'm like, I want to put some money in Elliot's pockets because he's got new versions as far as covers and stuff. And I'm so glad that in all three cases, Elliot's 2 books and your book, that you were able to work them out, because again, you guys know what you're doing with these characters.
Well, they're classics. These are the classics. These are mostly still the people that they really are. Versus whatever, I don't know anymore. But
honestly, and I've talked to right now the big showrunner at DC is Josh Williamson, who is just coming off an incredible run on The Flash, writing a lot of great books, and they refer to it as Infinite Frontier, and essentially every version of these heroes are fair game. And in fact, they had a really fun team up at the beginning of the year that featured 1939 Batman and Silver Age Superboy coming off of a Legion mission, and Commandy, and it was this great mishmash of heroes of all different iterations and ages, and it was great, and it was a lot of fun, and it's like
an issue of Bob Haney's Brave and Bold. Yeah,
I used to love that. Exactly. How are Sergeant Rock and Batman having a team up? Who cares?
Who cares? Yeah, what difference does it make?
Yep, and all those great Batman Wildcat stories.
Yeah,
I mean that was my first exposure to Wildcat, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is a great character. So who cares? It's like, as long as it's fun. If somebody has a great Superboy Smallville idea with Ma and Pa either on the farm or at the general store, and Chief Parker is there, and Pete Ross and Lana Lang, I'm so for it. I am so for it.
I asked Bob Haney, what the fuck were you thinking? And his response was pretty much, why let that continuity crap get in the way of a good idea?
He's so right. And I used to love in the letter column, they would refer, when people would question it, it's like, you got to understand, Brave and Bold is happening on Earth B. And Earth B, and I'll let people, you'll explain what Earth B stood for.
Earth B is Earth Boltonoff. Earth Murray Boltonoff. Yes, he was the editor. And Murray, everybody mocked Murray. I think that was a CBS show on for a couple of seasons. Let's mock Murray.
Everyone mocked Murray.
Everybody mocked Murray. But as it turned out, while everybody was going, look how brilliant Joe Orlando's House of Mystery is, Murray Boltonoff's Ghosts was kicking its ass in sales.
Wow, that's fantastic to know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Murray's books consistently and steadily outsold, a lot of, his World's Finest, his Superboy, Superman and Sons, that kind of stuff. It was just
I love the Super Sons. That was the original. I love what Tomasi's doing in the current version of the Super Sons. But yeah, man, it was Batman Jr. and Superman Jr. teenagers. Yeah,
and that stuff went through the roof. I don't know where it went, but it was a copy of a memo that Murray sent to Len Wein, and it was, "Dear Len, son of Swamp Thing! ! Take it away. Signed, Murray." And I'm thinking, Len would have gotten that and went, "Yeah, thanks, Murray." But in retrospect, it's like, you should have listened to Murray.
You know, crazy, Paul. Ram V, the wonderful guy that's just been killing it at DC, literally the last couple of years. There is a legacy Swamp Thing that's currently running. Alec's story is done. Alec Holland.
Yeah.
It's not Alec Jr., but it's not Alec Holland Jr. But that said, it is interesting and it works because of everything that Alan Moore set up with being the avatar of the Green, and there had been previous Swamp Things. And now it's time for this new generation. And, you know, as much as I loved Alec Holland's stories, I really, and I think I was talking to Mark Waid about this, where it was like, it's hard to make a dent when you got to follow Alan Moore and Len and Bernie Wrightson and company as far as the greats and Marty.
And Marty, yeah.
You know, yeah. And so it's like, it's good to kind of pass things along. And now there's a fresh perspective and a new avatar of the Swamp, and it's doing really well. He and Mark Perkins are killing it. It's great. So what were you writing before the implosion? What books of yours got sacrificed?
Nothing really. I mean, that was maybe Showcase that probably got killed. And I was, although my next Showcase project, which was World of Krypton, wound up being a miniseries when the movie came out.
Yep.
But back then I was doing a lot of Weird War Tales and House of Secrets. I used to write the intro pages for House of Mystery and House of Secrets and Weird War Tales, where Death would be standing there and saying something, very deep, and we would do Cain and Abel stories in House of Mystery and House of Secrets, little 5-page stories. There was a couple of pages up front, and then you'd page or two in between stories, because this is back during the 100-page and the 80-page, dollar comics. Yeah.
Yes.
And
that was a great time, man. Go on.
That was a great time. Yeah.
I mean, you wrote a lot of those Superman family stories.
Yeah.
Jimmy
Olsen and Supergirl and Nightwing and Flamebird.
Nightwing and Flamebird, absolutely, man. The Kandorians taking over for Superman and Jimmy.
Yeah.
And I can't remember.
And Akvar.
Akvar, absolutely, man. Oh, you see the smile on my face. This is my childhood, Paul. I don't mean to age us, but honestly,
me too. No, I mean, like Vanzi and Akvar preceded. I didn't create these guys. I just, put them in the costume and played them. Or they may have already. Vanzi may have already worn the costume before.
Okay,
I wrote them, but I think. But anyway, so but I grew up on the Mort Weisinger Superman.
Yeah.
Where silly shit was de rigueur. He was forever introducing all the elements that we the super pets and the different types of kryptonite and the all that lore and mythology that was both incredibly goofy and incredibly wonderful, because he knew his audience. He had he would focus group it with the kids in the neighborhood.
Wow.
He'd have to give them comic books and say, hey, would you like to see Superman do this or that or the other thing? And and he followed through with that.
Well, also was a lens on current pop culture. I mean, it's now everybody laughs when Pat Boone is on the cover of, if it was Superman or Lois Lane, I can't remember, or Alan Funt catching
Alan Funt, right? Or Steve Allen or Orson Welles.
Yes. Orson Welles, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
No, I remember that in the Bonanza Superman from the 30s to the 70s collection.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know Orson Welles was in a Superman comic.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. I got to acknowledge Wayne Musso was like, am I drinking blue milk like Luke? Actually, this is Romulan ale, as William Shatner would say in Star Trek 2. So I'm enjoying that while we're having our conversation. When it's funny, we mentioned all this great the Weisinger era. You've got a great interview with John Byrne right when he's taken the job of Superman, and I loved hearing. I mean, you've got it right there on the cover, or I should say on the ad for the book, in that word right there. Yeah. So if people can't read it, for years since the 1978 Superman movie came out, I'd been going around saying those jerks at DC don't know what to do with Superman. a sequence of events came together all at the same place. DC decided they were finally going to do something with Superman. I moved to Connecticut, land of Terrificon, where I incorporated. So I wasn't able to be under exclusive contract to Marvel anymore. And Jake Giordano called me up and said, okay, you got Superman, put your money where your mouth is. And he did. And unfortunately, in doing so, and listen, I love the Byrne run. It was exciting. It was a lot of fun. It was really, I wasn't a big Marvel reader prior to him coming over to DC. So it was really my first real heavy exposure to John Byrne. And as much as I love the stories, I'm also like, don't get rid of Kandor. Don't get rid of Supergirl. Don't get rid of, all this great mythos that had been built up during the Weisinger and Schwartz years and stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, tell me about talking to some of these people, both, the obvious and the not obvious that are on this great list of creators there. Tell me about Murphy Anderson. What kind of guy was he?
Oh, Murphy was a sweetheart. I kind of knew him from around the office. He'd come up, back in the 70s and 80s, early 80s. You just kind of, you showed up and you hung out at the office. You waited for the checks to come down from accounting. You were talking to editors, waiting for meetings, or just like, there's a couch at the end of the hall and everybody would kind of gather around there and, with coffee and it's just like you'd hang out. Like, you didn't, not only didn't you have to be like, searched and buzzed through the lobby, but like the receptionist knew you worked there or a freelancer, she'd be like, hi, how you doing? And you'd go, so, so I would be there while these guys would show up. I knew Murphy and I knew Kurt Swan and Kurt Schaffenberger. And, I don't think I ever met Bob Oxner, which is a shame. I love.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Supergirl artist, right? Oxner?
Yeah, in Carmine. He did a lot of Supergirl prior to that, but on my run, he inked Carmine Infantino.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. And go on, yeah, please.
Oh, and I'm just saying, it was just like, so, I didn't have a problem calling these guys up. It was like I was already, like, back when I was on staff in the 70s, there was, there were cubicles down the center of the corridor, because DC, this is 75 Rock, and DC only had like a third of the floor, because there were only about 35, 40 people maybe working for the company. And my cubicle was kind of like, Julie Schwartz's office was like, like one door back here. So while people are waiting for Julie Schwartz, they would hang out, on my cubicle. Like, there would be David Reed, David V. Reed, David Verne. No, he was a writer. He was a Batman writer, and
I didn't remember David. Okay, cool.
Yeah. He was easy. He had written he had written for TV, game shows and stuff, for Alan Sherman and things like that on What's My Line or whatever. And a lot of stuff, but he was an interesting character. He's just one of these like old pulp writer, grizzled old guy, and one day he's standing there and he's leaning on my cubicle and we're talking, and he's got this big bulky envelope, and he says, I see, you want to put that down? It looks like, no, I'll just hold it. And finally, after about 15 minutes of watching him juggle that thing, I go, why don't you just put it down? Like, what's in there? A pound of weed? And he lifts the flap and he goes, no, it's a kilo. So, oh, cool. Can I have? No, never mind. But
that's awesome. That's all right. It's legal. Hey, it's legal in Illinois. So
it's good. It just got passed here in Connecticut. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Honestly, Paul, again, not to age us, but I really didn't think that would start happening until I was your age or older, and I really expected to be like in my 70s and be like, yay,
finally.
It's
for
not
my arthritis. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome, man.
Dave also once slipped Julie a joint.
How do you slip Julie a joint? Like just gave him a rolled up cigarette and you didn't know?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people
really
smoke
curious?
hand rolls. Well, a lot of people smoked hand rolls in the 40s and 50s or whatever it was. So, yeah. So, and I would have paid good money to see Julie high.
I was going to say, where's that videotape? Please, that would be fantastic. Absolutely. Magic K is a good question here. What happened to your Emerald Twilight interlude you intended to do, and I guess was unpublished in the 90s.
It remained unpublished and remains unpublished. It was, written, penciled, lettered, inked. It was a 3-issue arc for Legends of the DC Universe. It was kind of my response to Hal Jordan's sudden turn to evil and parallax.
Yes,
and it was such like an abrupt change for that character. How to go from the noblest to the most corrupt evil.
Yes.
So I never played this game. I never played I don't like that. I have to fix it. But I did in this case.
Interesting.
And I wrote this. I wrote this story that involves Sinestro and time travel and how Sinestro, Sinestro's part in the death of Martin Jordan, his father. And so, just gave him some kind of, a bit more reason to want to change all this, to want to rebuild it.
Because he went crazy because Hank Hammond, who was posing as the half cyborg Superman, just with Mongol, destroyed City.
Right.
And he used his ring to kind of, with green energy, rebuild Coast City. The Guardians came and said, "You can't do that. You're breaking rules." And Hal snapped and went evil.
And that's in that second where the Guardian says you can't do that, and Hal goes, "Screw you." That's where my story takes place.
Oh, that's great.
What's his name? Time Master, Hunter.
Rip Hunter, sure.
Rip Hunter shows up and goes, "Come with me." All 3 scripts are printed.
Here we go.
All 3 scripts are printed in Son of the Unpublished Comic Book Scripts of Paul Kupperberg. Available now on Amazon.com.
Also a recent release that came out in April.
That's right.
That's fantastic, Paul. Seriously, I'm so glad you're doing this because for a long time, DC fans like ourselves, it's a great glimpse. But also, and it's so funny that we're talking today. Yesterday, I had Shelley Bond on, who remembers the direct currents and was really excited that we're doing this. And, mentioned that she's like, "Oh, yeah. Paul collected his interviews and everything."
I heard you talk with Mark last week and got a nice shout out from you guys then. So thank you.
Oh yeah, man. No. And again, you're beloved in the.
I can't help but be beloved.
But no, it's fantastic timing, I think, because I think these are all really good resources for people who want to learn how to write comics, and in Shelley's case, what to look for from an editing standpoint.
Sure.
And Shelley was very much like, you got to know every job. Even if you can't draw, you need to understand panel composition and page composition, where to put the balloons, where to put the thought bubbles. And it's so true. And really, it's my dividing line of, and I'm very fortunate that so many people that are breaking in and having their first books are like, "Can I come on your show?" And listen, I'm a fan. I'm a novice. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about when it comes to that stuff. But somewhere in my subconscious, I can tell this is a well-made comic book. This isn't. And a lot of people are still on their first books. And I try not to be discouraging, but I'm like, you've got my email. It's okay to bother me in the future. Right now, you're in, putting it in baseball terms, you're in single A. I need you to at least be in triple A before we talk.
Right.
So, and really the nature of what is AAA in the majors has changed because, as we've likely discussed before, the ambition for decades was, God, I really hope I get to work for DC and Marvel one day. Yeah. Now it's, let me grow my audience at DC and Marvel and take them with me. And by the way, if you didn't know, I'm doing a lot of creator-owned books, and maybe you'll like these stories. And
exactly.
And that's great. I'm so glad that the game has shifted. And then also, again, in that book, and here I've got the cover handy here. Like you say, there's a green. That is that Green Lantern story, I assume. Then that's in there.
It's the scripts for the 3 for that 3-issue arc. There's another one, 1980s Green Lantern story that I did as a fill-in Julie Schwartz, in his post-regular editing days, was given the job of having fill-ins created for titles because we were always late.
Sure. Yeah, in case somebody gets late. Yeah, you need a fill-in.
So
sure.
I wrote a couple of them. I wrote a Doom Patrol one, which got reprinted in the Doom Patrol Omnibus last year. And I wrote another one for Green Lantern, which was penciled, lettered, inked. It was penciled by my pal Rick Stacy and inked by Bruce Patterson, I think it was. And so that never saw print. So I actually reproduced that one from the copies of the scans of the original typescript.
Wow.
Cool. Complete with crossouts and editing. Mine and Julie Schwartz's editings. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. No, these are the kind of resources that I think people absolutely will learn from. And of course, another book that you've got is your Illustrated Guide to Writing Comics, of course.
Right.
So
indispensable, please.
Absolutely, man. Hey, man, absolutely. Now you've got your. I know you've got. Do you have an Amazon store proper, or like what's the best way to get these books?
Well, you can just check me out on Amazon. I don't have a store per se, but just type in my name and many things come up. Individual. Anybody's got an individual issue of DC Comics Presents or Life with Archie that they're selling.
Sure,
it shows up, but. All my books are on Amazon. You can also, you can get them directly from me. I take PayPal and I do signed and personalized copies of books. You can go to my website, paulkupperberg.com, and there's a page for each of my books, and there's a link both to the Amazon pages and to PayPal. So
very cool. Here I'm putting the banner up there. PaulKupperberg.com, everybody. Let's and again, I don't want to make more work for Paul, but that's good. And you get
this whole reverse thing. I can't
there you go.
No, I'm pointing the wrong way.
Yeah, that's all right, man. I know I got you on the shame on me. I don't have hold on, I gotta put the Word Balloon logo up there. Where the hell is it? Shame on me. Boom. There he is.
Oh, right. Yeah. Now I know where I am. Okay.
Exactly. We're in the wilderness until that moment. No, definitely. Yeah, I mean, honestly, these are terrific. Of course, also another fantastic book that you wrote a while ago, The Same Old Story.
Yes.
Which is your Romana Clef of the early days of comics. It's very funny. Again, last week I talked to Howard Chaykin about his series, Hey Kids Comics, and he's kind of doing an examination of a bit of longer period and stuff. But this is a great mystery that takes place during that 50s period that, when
the early 1950s. It's set during one of the many panics in those days that, distributors go out of business. So suddenly companies are closing their doors and creators are running around scrambling for work. And my protagonist is a comic book and pulp writer whose father had been a New York City police detective who he used to write pulp stories about. For the pulp magazines, but those were all going out of business, so he switched to comic books. And anyway, he gets involved in the murder of a frankly Bob Kanigher, and gets involved with that and other pastiche of people show up in the book. But I actually used Julie Schwartz as a character. I was just going to do one chapter kind of as an homage, throwaway bit.
Yeah.
And I wound up bringing him back, and he becomes kind of like, a Watson to my character, Sherlock Holmes. So, but anyway, it's a lot of fun, and
No, entertaining book, man. We talked about it years ago in one of our first conversations. Yeah. As far as the old stuff that didn't make print at DC, and I don't want to spoil any surprises you might have from a marketing standpoint or whatever, do you have more stuff that didn't see the light of day that you're going to represent on your own?
I might. There's still some stuff. I have like a 12-part. Back in the 80s, there was a plan to do what were they calling it? Blockbuster. Or then it was going to be called Comic Cavalcade. and was going to feature all the Charlton characters.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And Superman. Uh, but I wrote a 12-part Captain Atom serial for that, which came out to like, I don't know, 50 some odd pages of story. Because each chapter was, 4 or 6 pages, whatever it was.
Okay. Yeah.
And I guess Jose Delbo was drawing it, because there's actually a page of art that I found scan online of. But yeah, so I have some of that stuff, and depending on how this one sells, I'll see if that one sees print.
Well, that's great, man. I hope it happens. Here a lot of people, and I'm just gonna like hit them all at the same time here. Dave Silly, big fan of your Checkmate books.
Thank you.
And Sean also says loved Checkmate. First 3 issues would make a great TV pilot.
Wouldn't it though? Yeah.
Would love a novel series. And also Bendis's Checkmate is going to be published tomorrow. What are your feelings about Checkmate continuing publishing this to this day?
Cool, great. Keep it going. I mean, I don't have anything to do with it. Nobody has talked to me about it, nor do they have to. But they do have to pay me royalties. So,
attaboy. I was going to ask Paul regarding Checkmate. First of all, the design for their armor, I loved. I always did. It was so interesting looking at that white and gold, or black and gold, whatever it was.
Yeah.
You'll forgive me if I'm getting the colors wrong. I know gold.
No, black and gold. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I remember there was a television series called Checkmate, and I wondered if it was tied in any way in terms of licensing, or how did Checkmate get started?
Absolutely nothing to do with that. That was Rod Taylor and Sebastian Cabot. Can you imagine Sebastian Cabot in the costume?
No, but as a spy master, I certainly.
But yes, but no, that was I think it was a European or a Canadian series. I forget which.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it was set in Europe, and they were just like the Checkmate Detective Agency or whatever it was.
That's right.
My Checkmate, and I did remember the show. In fact, I could probably dig around down here and pull out the Gold Key comic book 2-issue adaptation of the original Checkmate.
They adapted everything.
Everything.
I mean, Hogan's Heroes comics and stuff like that.
I assume that they just took these blanket licenses out with the networks that cost them nothing, or maybe even the networks paying them. Who knows in those days?
Sure. And and Dell, which also was Western and Gold Key, they were based in LA. So I think you're probably right that it probably made it easier for them to do business with various studios and networks and stuff.
Because I know CBS, all the networks. CBS, NBC, ABC, which were all the networks back then.
Yep.
They all had shows adapted into comics.
That's right.
Most of them, a lot of them drawn by like Don Heck and Mike Sikowski and Steve Ditko. I mean, Steve Ditko, I think, did My Favorite Martian.
That's
something like that. Yeah.
Of course he did. I forget who did Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah.
Maybe Bob Wood or somebody. I mean, it was.
Yeah. There was just some like there were no credits, but
no.
But you just you flip through and you'd say, in retrospect, I read them all back then, and I didn't before I could really identify these guys. But
sure.
But yeah, there were a ton of them. But so we were doing. I was doing Vigilante. And I started writing that up after about 19-20 issues. Marv Wolfman created it and started it going. And then I somehow went from writing some fill-in dialogues to, writing the book, which was great. I mean, I loved it. It was an incredible book to write, and it took the character on this great run that was self-destructive, and the character had to kill himself to redeem himself, and he did. And then I don't have any comic book to write anymore. So the idea was really to create something to follow up, to fill in the gap in my schedule on after the death of Vigilante, and figured, well, we got a lot of good characters in Vigilante that were kind of left hanging and kind of had it kind of implied this loose network of spies and all that, because Peacemaker was involved and Valentina Vostok from Doom Patrol and all kinds of Harvey Bullock and so. I worked up Checkmate. I thought, it's just an interesting, visual and metaphor for a spy agency. And we sat down at lunch with John Byrne, and he designed the costume so that we could, tag off of his name,
Sure.
But Steve Irwin. John did one drawing of the knight, of the costume.
Yes.
And that was it. Steve Irwin really came up with the whole look and feel and design of the other costumes and the headquarters and the individual characters. It was great to work with. And it just that was pretty much it. It's like, oh my God, I need a replacement book. So.
That's fantastic, and I'm glad you mentioned Peacemaker because it would have slipped my mind to not ask you about the coming Suicide Squad movie, and everyone is already laughing based on the trailer of John Cena's portrayal. I mean, he's got that goofy helmet, and it's so
got that goofy helmet, but you know what, man, it works. It
does work. It absolutely.
Pat Boyette is looking up and going, "Ha ha! Told you."
He was right. Absolutely, man.
But
yeah, how much Peacemaker you wrote a ton of Peacemaker in the 80s.
As much Peacemaker as it was being done in the 80s, I was doing. I used him in Vigilante, and I wrote a 4-issue miniseries that I did with Todd Smith, who years later I went on to do he drew some of my Archie scripts. So I was like, yes, you did the crazed Peacemaker, and then you drew Archie with me. So it was like we had this nice, bookends to our relationship.
That's fantastic. Go on.
But I mean, I really don't remember how the idea of the crazed, Peacemaker with the voices in his helmet talking. I think that was Keith Giffen's original take. He was going to do Peacemaker in that Comics Cavalcade blockbuster anthology thing, and so I kind of picked up. I was going to use the character, and somebody said, "Well, Keith was doing this crazy shit thing with him."
Sure.
And but I made the crazy voice in the helmet be his dead Nazi father, who committed suicide in front of him when he was like 6 years old.
Dark shit, man. I mean, honestly, that and Adrian Chase, Vigilante, killing himself again. Stuff that I was an early adapter of grim and gritty. That's hey, man.
Not everything had to be grim and gritty, but when I did it, I like to think I went all in.
Well, and again, we discussed this before about Vigilante's death and that incredible postscript, that was in part of the letter page that you wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you were very responsible in terms of that portrayal of this kind of endgame for an irredeemable guy that, like you said, I mean, God, that cover says it all. That was it issue 50 of Adrian facing himself and a reflection is Vigilante holding the gun at him. And I mean, again, it was dark as hell. They probably wouldn't do that story today. Social mores have changed.
Yeah.
People are a little more sensitive. It's crazy. I was listening to, I love hearing podcasts about old movies. Can't remember the name of I believe it was The Projection Room. That's the name of the podcast.
Uh-huh.
They were discussing the 80s movie Better Off Dead with John Cusack.
Yeah.
And there were two guys, around our age that is like, it's really funny movie. I mean, the level of its absurdity in those Savage Steve Holland movies speak for themselves. And they had a younger person on that was a co-host. And her attitude was, suicide's not funny, period. And it's like, of course it isn't. But this is absurdity. I mean, it's called Better Off Dead. It's like, come on, people. I get it.
You couldn't make Blazing Saddles today.
No
Mel
question.
Brooks could not make Blazing Saddles. Blazing Saddles is one of the greatest comedies of all time. It is full of shit that is so inappropriate,
Of course it is.
and that's why it's so funny.
I'm with you.
You know,
No,
you know, but yeah, I mean, you know, of course, there, you know, you don't have to sell me on wokeness and all that stuff. I mean, you know, I like to think I was doing it way early on in my comics writing. You know, my Doom Patrol was a group of 4 people that consisted of 2 women, one of whom was Asian, 2 guys, one of whom was African American, and the other one was a robot. So,
yeah, yeah.
You know,
Led by a woman as well. The chief
led by a
whale.
woman. Yeah.
Yeah. No, was that Vostok? Was that Valentina Vostok? Was she?
Yeah, she was Negative Woman. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's right. Absolutely, my
That's
God.
right.
Good stuff, man. No, and again, I was so glad that they put your characters in the DC streaming Doom Patrol series.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was terrific. And haven't they republished your Peacekeeper stories recently, or are about to put them out?
The Peacemaker.
Peacemaker, yes.
They I just got advanced copies of the Suicide Squad, you know, casebook, I think they call it, which has individual stories of the characters, and they reprint the story from number 36, Vigilante, which is where the Peacemaker kills the guy who's wearing the Vigilante costume at the time.
Right, because I forgot about that. That's right. There was another Vigilante for a brief period.
Right.
Yes.
And that was what you know, makes Adrian pick up the mask again and go, okay, all in, because this thing is death to anybody who touches it.
Yes.
And you know,
God, I hope we get a Vigilante omnibus or something. I don't know if they'd be afraid to do that again because of the way the story ends.
Yeah, I don't know. It is, you know, again, there's a lot of stories in that run that, you know, involve a lot of touchy issues. You know, there's rape and you know, child abuse and
Yes.
you know, all kinds of heinous stuff. So because they said right street, so I thought, okay.
No, and you're right, man. And again, it's what drives Adrian Chase, who is a judge,
Yeah.
to become Vigilante, and then, you know, in a much more extreme way, the way that Matt Murdock became Daredevil, in terms of you can't count on the system. We got to take the stuff in our own hands.
I approached Adrian Chase from the beginning as a crazy guy. You know, like, he was very rash. He was on the surface. He was, you know, like, I'm doing this for this reason. I'm a judge. I can, you know, you put on a mask and you go out and kill people because you don't like the result of our democratic process. You know, of our judicial system.
That's right.
You're crazy.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah.
and that's what made the book interesting and compelling, as, you know, somebody that was during my college years. So no, I was on board, man. Again, it's fiction. There's nothing wrong with hard fiction. And that's
not at all.
That's where sometimes, as much as I believe I lean on the left side of most issues, it's like there's room for fiction and there's room for hard, tough fiction as well.
But listen, you know, I'm currently reading the biography of Philip Roth. That, you know, is an 800-page monster out there, and he was all about offending and you know, go. He wasn't even trying to offend. He was just trying to, you know, get to the emotion, to the reality of people. You know, most of his characters are based on, you know, incidents in his life and people from his life. So, you know, it's not real, you know, otherwise. You can't. Adrian Chase, you know, Superman will never be real. I don't care how well you write him. He flies and can push the earth around. You know, I mean, I love him, but he'll never be real.
Right.
You know, Batman will never be real because Batman is also in freaking sane. You know, I don't know. At some point, I just started looking at these characters, you know, with the real eye, with the eye of reality, and just I'm like, oh wait, this is crazy.
I mean, really, again, I know Watchmen, when it came out, it's so interesting. The people that read Watchmen in hindsight and after it had come out are like, well, we don't understand what the big deal is. And it's like, well, yeah, because you weren't there when it was brand new and revelatory, both in storytelling, the art that Dave Gibbons provided, and what Alan Moore was doing with the scripts. So, yeah, I mean, did that kind of inform some of your choices in terms of writing moving forward?
No, I'm very careful to avoid that kind of influence. You know, there was always this class of writers where, after reading the latest issue of their book, you know what movie they saw just before writing that story, just before writing that comic, because it's like they're using the lines, they're doing the, you know, they're picking up shtick from it, and it was, you know, that snaps the, you know, that breaks the fourth wall, and that just kind of makes it, you know, unreal. Plus, it dates the hell out of the material. You know, a TV show from 1963 like the Dick Van Dyke Show holds up because there's no contemporary references in it. You know, you could reshoot those scripts with probably minimal rewriting and never know that they were originally written to be set in 1963 or 4 or 5.
Yep.
But, you know, other shows, they go out of their way to be, you know, to be in the moment. And then 20 years down the line, you're watching it, and, you know, your kids turning to you and going, what? Yeah.
Yeah. Like a phrase like "for shizzle."
Yeah.
It was so, you know, 1999, and now it's like, ow.
Yeah. You know, did I do that? What? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Urkel. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're killing me. That's hilarious. David Silly wants to know, speaking of licensed comic characters, didn't you meet Jerry Lewis?
I did meet Jerry Lewis.
Talk about it. You heard this story.
I was a big, lifelong fan. I mean, Jerry was just, he was just that guy. He was just that character I connected with, you know, and I loved his movies, and I would watch them, and I would screech like him. I still do. My last apartment before I moved in with my girlfriend featured Jerry Lewis movie posters in the living room.
Wow.
Yeah.
What movie? You got to tell me what movies.
It was
Ladies Man?
No. Oh boy.
Give me co-stars and what you'll remember.
It was the one where he goes down the staircase with the Basie Orchestra.
Cinderfella.
Cinderfella, of course.
Classic. Yeah. Oh my God.
That's Norman Rockwell. Yeah, it's a Norman Rockwell painting.
Norman Rockwell painted
the movie poster for Cinderfella. Yes.
Wow. And then you mentioned real fast. You mentioned the staircase. He had a heart attack doing because it's the Cinderella story, and when the clock strikes midnight and he's going to change back to his humble self, he runs up the staircase and apparently really did have a heart attack.
Well, coming down the staircase, he doing that dance coming down the staircase, he fell and broke his back.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. I was like where his Percocet.
His Percocet addiction. Yes. Continue, though. What was the other poster? That's
the other poster was the Italian poster for You Can't Take It With You.
Oh, that's great. Absolutely. Martin and Lewis. Absolutely.
Yeah. No. I'm sorry. It's Only Money. That's right.
Okay. Right. Yes. Yeah, You Can't Take It With You is Frank Capra. You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was the Italian poster for that. And then I had, some stills and stuff. But in 1993, he was on Broadway in Damn Yankees.
Yep.
Playing the devil.
Yep.
My then wife got us tickets.
Wow.
For a Sunday matinee, and it was a birthday present. It was an anniversary. I don't remember. It was a present. Damn it. Anyway, we went in. John Byrne's. Were they still married? No, I think it was already ex. John Byrne's ex-wife, Andy Braun, had been an actress in a previous life. and was friends with the guy who was playing Old Joe in Damn Yankees. The guy
Joe Hardy, the character.
Who gets turned into the young guy who
became like the Babe Ruth of the Washington Senators and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So he gets, so she knew him, and yada yada yada. They got me backstage, and so it was a Sunday matinee. Jerry works on that stage, man. He was, he's got a few solo turns on there. They just put the spotlight on him. He does his old, cane thing where he throws the cane and he keeps missing it just to build the drama. It's like, and it says he's doing all the shtick, and I am just like, I'm wetting myself with glee and anticipation.
Sure.
Anyway, it's over. It was great. And we go backstage, and yes, he's the actor, met us, and he goes, "Let me get Jerry. He's got a bunch of people." Blah blah blah. So, he comes back out, and he goes, Jerry's real tired. It says he's got a dinner with his wife, and just then Jerry comes through the door. And he goes, no, I got,
that's great.
I got, we're going out to dinner, but, I've got a minute, please. And I brought with me a couple of issues of Jerry Lewis comics for him to sign.
Sure.
So, I gave them to him, and we chatted a little. I don't know what I said, but,
What did he have any comments about the comics?
Oh, yeah. He said, geez, I haven't seen these in years. He said, I got stacks of them around the house, But yeah. So I spent 3 minutes with Jerry. Got my picture taken with him.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was cool.
Oh my God! No, I can only imagine. That's fantastic, man. That's
however,
amazing.
Flash forward 10 years.
Okay.
15 years. No, it's nothing. No interaction. It was never him personally. I want to do a collection with Abrams books of Jerry Lewis comics. And it was we had a moment there where DC was very receptive, but they couldn't do it without Jerry. They own the stories. Jerry owns the character, the copy.
Right, the likeness.
Character.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, DC's all for it. They'll go for it. So I was going to do, this 396-page book and reprint, as much as I could possibly stuff in there. And it was glorious. And begins the process with Charlie Kochman, who was the editor at Abrams Books and was my pal from when we were in the license publishing department at DC together. We get to trying to get in touch with Jerry. So we're directed to this guy who is apparently Jerry's agent. I mean, his business card says, Sam Schmuck, Jerry's agent, and has a little caricature of Jerry on it,
Yeah.
And this guy, now we start negotiations. Jerry had just published Dean and Me.
Yes.
I
own it.
Yeah.
His memoir about his partnership with Dean Martin, really his friendship. Yeah.
Yeah. And so yes. So now he's wanting memoir money.
Yeah.
And memoir money is not great in publishing, but but it's certainly, this is how many copies we going to sell of this?
Sure.
I just want mine.
I get it. No,
I just want my copy.
Yep.
But we start going back and forth, and it's like, I'd be making what, $10,000 on this thing. It's not a big payday. It's not money. And he comes back with $250,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, now Sam Schmuck and us, we're going back and forth. And, then it comes to us that, he doesn't represent Jerry. He's not supposed to represent Jerry. Jerry has forbidden him to continue to represent him. He used to. So we're going through all this, and finally, it's like now the kind of the opportunity is passed. But a few years after that, I decide, let's try again. The contacted DC who would sign off on it is still there. So we probably, so I just go, I look up the address, Jerry Lewis Productions in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I, print out the proposal. I write a nice letter. I FedEx, I FedEx it over there and wait and wait and wait. And long story short, I wind up sending 3 or 4 different proposals, copies of the same proposal in the same letter. It got to the point where the receptionist at Jerry Lewis Productions recognized my voice and would say, "No, I'm sorry, Jerry still has," And then I hooked up with his son on Facebook, Chris.
Okay.
Chris Lewis. I saw him on Facebook, and I went, "Hey, I've been sending and I was referred to you on the phone because about." And his response was pretty much, "Why the fuck are you bothering me with this stuff? If anybody's interested, you'd hear from us." I'll take that as a no.
I guess. God, that's a shame. Did you see it? Did you see his final movie, Max Rose?
Yes, very good. I
liked it. Yeah, man.
I have DVD. Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to get a review digital copy, and I'm so glad I saw it because it was on Netflix. I don't know if it still is, but it was on Netflix for a while. And no, it was. I'm glad he got to make a decent final movie, and it was. It was. God, Claire Bloom is in it, and Stockwell and Kevin Pollak. It's a nice.
It's a very good movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, my favorite non-funny Jerry Lewis movie is Funny Bones.
I still haven't seen Funny Bones. I'm aware of it.
It's great. It's great. Oliver Platt and him, and it's a really good movie. He's a good actor. He's a
yes.
And he was a brilliant clown.
He was.
Whatever you always hear the stories about what a jackass he was, but it's like, I don't care.
Right.
He still made because I have no mind anymore. The Nutty Professor. I mean, that's it. Done. I'm good with him.
To me, it was getting back to Cinderfella. They wanted to hold it for Christmas, or no, he wanted to hold it for Christmas, and they're like, "No, we want to put it out in the summer." And he's like, "I'll give you a summer movie."
That's right.
He's
the bellhop.
The bellboy, exactly.
Bellboy, yeah.
He's performing live in Miami at the Fontainebleau, which was a big thing. Makes this incredible movie where he never speaks. Everybody else, or he speaks at the very end of the movie.
Right.
But it's just a series of vignettes. It's a very funny movie. And
a great movie, yeah.
And he delivered and just would, do his stage act at night and make this movie during the day and edit the thing and got it to them in time for a summer release. He got what he wanted, and Paramount got a second hit out of him.
Yeah. No,
he was a money machine for a really, really long time.
Oh, sure. No, he had carte blanche. He was like Woody Allen, during that peak period of Woody Allen. It's like, here's your budget, give us a movie.
Yep. The one that is terrible, but I love it because it's terrible, is Which Way to the Front.
Right.
Oh, my God. Oh, and I mean, man, there's just a lot. First of all, you got him and Jan Murray in action scenes beating up Nazis. And it's like, okay, sure.
Well, 2 old Jews taking it out on some Nazis. What the hell?
You know what I found, Paul? Speaking of Jan Murray, and I sent it to Chaikin because I knew Chaikin would love it. It's on YouTube, and I'll send you the links if you're interested. They have the Friar's Roast of Humphrey Bogart from 1955.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And Red Buttons is the MC, and Jan Murray.
Did he get a dinner?
What's that? Exactly.
Did he get a dinner?
No, but all of them, you hear all of them swear, and it's like, what I love is, and I mean, of course, modern roasts, they always swear too, but essentially their swearing mostly was calling each other cocksuckers. That was pretty
There was, I forget who tells the story, but, it's like on the Gilbert Gottfried podcast or whatever, talking about the old Friar's Roast. And it's like, guys tell times like, and then Jack Benny would, get up and go, and so I just told them to go fuck themselves.
Exactly.
Like, Jack Benny can't say that.
Yep. Yep. I heard George Burns do a joke like that about blue balls, and it's like, it's George Burns talking about blue balls. What the hell's going on? So but I love it. It's not. Sadly, a lot of it is not funny, It's just, it's guys smoking cigars, drinking, and having a relaxed time. Although Lauren Bacall is very cute in it and everything, and of course Bogey is Bogey.
Yeah.
But the best is Charles Coburn, the old character actor, who always wore the monocle and stuff. And he says cocksucker or fuck or something, and it's like, wow. So for people like us that are old Hollywood fans, it's awesome. All right, before we go, I want to. Stephen Commander here is like,
here comes Stephen.
Kupperverse DCU intelligence agency questions. Did you ever plan? This is a great question. An Aryan Aquaman story back when Aryan spun out of Warlord. Aryan, of course, your Atlantis character. For a while, Power Girl was retconned to be a descendant of Aryans and everything.
Right.
So and then of course, with your Crazy 8 publishing group, I know you had an Aryan story there, correct?
In fact, I did publish an ebook years ago called Two Tales of Atlantis, which were prose stories that would have kind of been, Aryan stories. One of them was my, essentially my last Aryan story, but with different character, different names and slightly different changed circumstances. And another one I wrote for a Miriam Zimmer Bradley anthology, Women Warriors, number 26 or something, and that didn't make it. But and now I'm going to be doing a novella with the characters, and
great,
and then publishing them, in for real in book form with Crazy 8. So,
but did you ever plan to do an Aryan Aquaman story?
I kind of always, would have liked to, but there was never really an opportunity. I did do a fill-in issue of JLA that, took place in the discovery of Aryan's ancient Atlantis and used his bad guy. But, that was the closest I ever came. But that would have been cool to kind of, I'm sure somebody has done it and explained the link between my Aryan Atlantis and the whatever current Aquaman Atlantis there is, because I'm sure it'll change. What's today, Monday? So anything can happen. But that would have been cool. It did occur to me, as there was just never an opportunity to do it.
Steve has another follow-up question about Doom Patrol. If your run had continued on Doom Patrol, would you have done an issue explaining what the chief had been up to since the team was blown up? Any influence also on Mento's turn to evil and also becoming Das Freshmacher, the fine mint that we all love?
Oh yeah, das is good. The chief, I know I had plans for the chief. I don't remember. It's been so long that I really don't remember specifically. But he would have been up to one of his schemes. His manipulative behind their back schemes that eventually he would need them to help straighten out. I never considered Mento. I was like, he's a Titans character. Him and Beast Boy don't belong to me.
Interesting, sure.
Yeah, so it's like, why bother? Anything I'm going to do, that would be interesting enough to bring them in to do something with, they weren't going to let me do.
Did and forgive me, Paul, if it was there during your run, because as far as I was concerned, they were a weird group, but I didn't see them as even though they were misfits, but I just didn't, a different set of heroes in Grant's hands, and certainly on the TV series. I love that Timothy Dalton is the chief.
Yeah.
Really, that just blew my mind, and it was like, oh man, it is so good to see Timothy Dalton in this kind of role.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But was that part of your mental makeup as you were writing Doom Patrol?
I think in 2001, I think it was, Arnold Drake came up to the DC offices along with a bunch of other old pros who was, I think Dewey Casal had arranged a tour for, Murphy was there with his wife, and Larry Lieber came up.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the first time I ever met Larry, and he was like, "It's so strange, you know. We were up at Marvel yesterday and going around, nobody knew who I was." And he goes, "Here, every office I go into, everybody jumps up and goes, 'Wow, Larry Lieber!'" And I jumped up and went, "Wow, Larry Lieber, hell yeah," you know.
Sure.
Um, but anyway, Arnold was there, and I had met Arnold before, you know, on and off over the years, but never anything really. Never spent much time talking to him. Um, and I'm talking to him here, and I said, you know, I was the guy who brought back your Doom Patrol, and yeah, blah 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 blah. And I said, you know, and I got to tell you, the big mistake I made was you know was messing with what you had left. I should have just stuck with what you did and continued from there instead of trying to take it off in another direction. And he kind of gave me this very, you know, rabbinical, wise look, and it's like, I know, my boy, I know, you know. Yeah.
That's great, man. I'm so glad at my first San Diego back in 2006. I think that was Arnold's last San Diego, and he was in the Rascal, but he did this fantastic one-on-one conversation with Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
Oh, nice.
And man, I'll tell you, it really was sitting at Mount Olympus listening to two, you know, great gods.
Giant storyteller.
Yeah.
Arnold was like the only guy at DC who got what Stan was doing at Marvel. You know, Doom Patrol was the most Marvel book at DC Comics.
Yes.
You know, even though it was, you know, it was Arnold. And funny too, because when Arnold finally went to Marvel and wrote the X-Men, wasn't that good?
No,
he wasn't good at Marvel. He didn't really.
Yeah.
You know, I think Red Chief was his big, you know,
contribution. Yeah. When you know, did you ever get a chance? And I don't know if he was always in Italy. Bruno
Premiani.
Yeah.
Never met him. Never spoke to him. Never. Yeah.
Okay. You know, it's funny. Gabe Hardman loves that Drake Permiani run of Doom Patrol. And really, you know, yeah. And I mean, you know, yeah, Bruno's art was just amazing. Final question from Steve here.
All right, Steve, enough already. Go to sleep.
No, he's a good man. He shows up to a lot of my chats, so it's cool. Were you involved or consulted when Peacemaker was killed in Eclipso, only to have him show up as part of Max Lord's League Busters a month later, or was there a lack of communication between editorial for that? I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember that. Okay. So the answer would probably be no. I don't know what the time frame was. You know, I didn't have any editorial control over Eclipso. I had used him as a character in the Phantom Stranger miniseries in the 80s that Mike Mignola did.
Wow. Great.
Yeah, that was cool. And it was inked by P. Craig Russell. So,
wow. Oh, I love Craig. He's a good dude. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. And Mike's a good dude too. I don't want people.
Oh yeah, no, both. I mean, both great guys. But let's admit it, Craig is nicer. Come on. That's just a little tiny bit, you know.
Yeah, but Mike's always been good to me. But
absolutely, yeah.
Craig's a sweetheart. You're absolutely right about that. That's hilarious, man.
But and then I used him in Starman, I think. I was handed the Starman run, the Roger Stern, Tom Lyle Starman run to run out its last, you know, whatever issues before it was canceled.
Was that Prince Gowan or whatever, or was
no? That was Will Payton.
Oh, sure, absolutely, Will Payton Starman, absolutely.
Yeah.
God, I'm so glad James Robinson, when he was doing Starman, brought them all back.
Yeah, I mean, I was. After, you know, a few years afterwards, after the book ended, I did a pitch with Dan Raspler as the editor for, you know, to bring back Starman, and I did this whole thing, and then, you know, we turned and went, well, actually Robinson is working on something. Oh crap! All right, so we changed the name and it became Tachyon and got canceled after 7 issues.
Oh yeah, okay, so. Crazy. Well, you didn't. Hold on, see if there's one more question here. Okay, there you go. Steven says he's looking forward to your next book of unpublished scripts, and that is a good cue to wrap things up and remind people that right now, you didn't get to talk to Bruno, but look at this list, and I'm going to actually say it for my audio audience. Murphy Anderson, Jim Aparo, Kyle Baker, Brian Boland, John Byrne, John Costanza, the great letterer, Chuck Dixon, Keith Giffen, Dick Giordano, Mike Grell, Ed Hannigan, Adam Hughes, Carmine Infantino, Klaus Janson. How did you interview yourself? I'm curious about that. But
I had to go through my agent. It was just a hassle.
Tom Lyle, Lee Mars, Pepe Moreno, Denny O'Neill, Jerry Ordway, Jerry Robinson, Kurt Schaffenberger, Julius Schwartz, Walter Simonson, and Jim Warren. God damn, that's a great collection of interviews that I am savoring and taking my time with, but I've enjoyed the ones that I've read so far. So yeah, man, and yeah, excited about Captain Atom. I'm with you, Stephen, on that. So that's good to hear, and I hope that certainly happens. But all right, so we got the direct comments book, yes. and then we also have for people, again, this is the second collection of unpublished comic book scripts.
Right, the first one printed the scripts that were originally going to be for the revamped Supergirl and Superboy strips that were going to appear in a comic called DC Double Comics as a rotating features, and then Crisis happened and screw me.
Oh man, that sucked. Yeah. Again,
I wrote the first 2 issues of both features, and yeah,
that sucks, man. Well, and then of course from November, still out there. If you're especially coming off the animated movie, you want to read a great JSA story. Check out JSA Ragnarok. It's wonderful. And again, more here. Let's point out too another great guide along with the script writing books and stuff. Paul's Illustrated Guide to Writing Comics, pretty cool. And also pick up his wonderful mystery detective story, Same Old Story, that takes place in the 50s during comics. And finally, we'll say again that you can thank Paul in person for all the great stories over the years at Terrificon. That's going to be July 30th through August 1st. And I'm looking forward to that weekend. I will be there. And I will.
Excellent.
Yeah, exactly, man. Shake your hand and say good to see you. And thank God we can see each other face to face again. And hey, all right, cool. By the way, Raj wants you to know I can't stay, but I wanted to say I ordered your book from your website. Can't wait to get it. And again, this is a good excuse to put up Paul's website, paulkupperberg.com. So way to go, Paul. Yes, indeed. Hey, seriously, man. I again, I'm so glad you're putting this stuff out. You're one of these guys that you're a font of knowledge, and we all should be, buying these books and scrutinizing them.
Learn from me.
Exactly. Or else. Damn straight. I will see you in 5 weeks. Thanks a lot for hanging out.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Ted. It was a lot of fun. Thanks, John.
It always is, man. No, I really appreciate it, man. And everybody, thanks a lot for watching tonight. More great Word Balloon Live later this